So, Maya, we're back for our second session because there was just too much to throw into 1 hour. And you were sharing when we broke, you were sharing about your Haitian heritage and
Mhm.
experience of your elders, and we were talking about the trajectory of the United States right now since the election, and what's happening with fascism and authoritarian behaviors, and
Absolutely.
why I'm trying to hold a place of hope, and you're saying, "Oh, my cynicism's kicking in here."
Absolutely a bit.
So I want
Um,
to hear the cynic. Come on, give me
Absolutely.
some history.
I will to the best of my ability, right? I'm a practicing therapist, everyone. But anywho, the America and kind of Haiti have a very interesting connection there, even though they're never really like allies or anything close to that. On this side of the world, after the Europeans come over here and everything, these are the first two nations to get freedom. Haiti in 1804, and of course, America earlier in 1776, if I remember correctly. And both of them start with these really beautiful ideals of we're about liberty. And the Americans fight for it and they earn it. And the Haitians too, they fight not only the French, but also the Spanish and also the British. Because it was such a profitable island overall. And so they were able to garner that. However, unlike America, that was able to maintain its own powers and do its own thing, and eventually was recognized by the British Empire, Haiti was strapped down by this ridiculous debt that the French eventually imposed and came back and encircled them and say, hey, if you want to be a part of anything, you must pay this ridiculous amount of money, which they just got finished paying maybe 10 years ago. And so it was ridiculous, but they did it because they didn't have a choice. And so Haiti's always been strapped down to some extent because of imperialism. Um,
Mhm.
However, the reason why I see a lot of connections is during my grandparents' time, you have the Duvalier family that comes into power.
Mhm.
And especially the second child, the child of the original authoritative, regime, he marries a woman who wears this fur coat. Mind you, this is Haiti. It's tropical. It is hot always. And she has her AC running because she wants to wear these fur coats in a country where AC is electricity, rather, is not guaranteed throughout the entire day. So the wastefulness was on a whole nother level. In addition, there was a lack of funding into natural resources, into education, into just making sure that infrastructure was together. There was a hyper focus on making sure that they're in good allegiance with their imperial masters and making sure that they're okay, but not so much the country at large. The reason why I saw some parallels with the United States is because of the decadence on one end. The fact
Mhm.
that you have so many celebrities and people of power who are wasteful, whether it's with these private jet fuel emissions that they're doing, whether it's having way too many homes and yachts, which that's always something of the rich, or even destroying nature as well with what we see with AI and how Sam Altman is begging for ever more money. He wants $1 trillion to push this forward, and it's not even producing revenue. So there's wastefulness over there and destroying the earth. And in addition, devaluing education and making sure that those social systems are maintained in order for society to continue to grow and to stay ahead. And so when I'm looking at America, this divestment rather, from these key areas that help a society to grow and sustain itself, I'm like, today we can continue. And maybe even 50 years we'll be able to still have good structure. But is this going to allow America to still be number one? And I
Mhm.
just don't see that happening, especially because of the sacrifices that happened during FDR's time and other presidents, is keeping that, granted, still participating in nonsense, but still trying to keep the structure at large maintained and making sure people are taken care of, education is taken care of, even if they're using it as a vehicle of indoctrination. And so I think
Mhm.
when those key things within society start to break down in the same way that our human body can start to decay, and we're noticing like, hey, this person may not be doing so hot and they may not make it as long as we thought they could. I feel like with America, we're kind of in this stage. I think the point to turn around, I think that's already been crossed. The fact that so many in America think it's okay, that the rich can dominate, that nature doesn't matter, I think already civilization excuse me for my tirade, already is kind of a deviation from nature. The idea that you're kind of almost the Tower of Babel, although I don't believe everything in the Bible, this idea of you're bringing forth all of these structures that rival mountains, that rival the trees and heights, that rival natural rivers when you're bringing these dams. But as you're doing this, are you in reverence of nature like an Egyptian would have been or other ancient societies? Or are you disconnected? And the more I'm seeing that in America, I'm like, how long can you be disconnected before this really backfires? Haiti has a lot of deforestation as well, and it's really harmed the country. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
So tell me about your family and your family history and your journey.
Oh, wow. Well, my grandfather had to kind of, but it depends how far back you want me to go. But as far as coming to America,
Okay.
um, my great grandfather was a raging alcoholic. And
Okay.
so while the family did have land and so on, that was given up because of the alcoholism. So when my
Mhm.
grandfather is coming of age, he's trying to figure out, where am I going to go? Where can I get opportunity? Now, in this time in Haiti, it is not the Haiti we see today. People are still visiting. My mother
Mhm.
talked about when she was a little kid, she'd see little white kids there, and tourists would give her little pennies and stuff, and she'd be like, yay, and run around and buy candy and stuff. So it was still kind of seen, not totally like Jamaica, but similar as a tourist spot.
Okay.
However, the cracks were already showing. And so he decided to become a missionary. Is he truly a Christian or not? That's to be contended with. I'm not here for that. I'm not gonna. But anywho, he becomes one, and he talks about how much he wants to speak the word in America and help to convert people and how he could be used for greatness. So then they help him and they bring him over here. And then he brings over my grandmother and my great uncle, and everybody else kind of makes their way, which was hard, as you can imagine. But they found their way.
Right. And then you said your father?
Yes, my dad's on that side. My great my grandfather knew of my father.
Mhm.
However, he did not take any responsibility because he felt like this was a relationship outside of his marriage and he didn't want that reflection. My
Particularly if he's
grandmother,
going to be a preacher.
well, this
Right.
is on my father's side.
Oh,
My
okay.
Yeah, on my mom's side is the preacher.
Okay.
He just didn't want, I guess, the stain, the social stain
Uh-huh.
perceived. And
Mhm.
then on my grandmother on my father's side, she had a litany of mental health issues, and so
Mhm.
she was not able to properly care for him. So he kind of went through the cracks. And in Haiti, they talk about this really terrible system that they do to kids at times. It's archaic, but it's still here nonetheless. It's called Restavec. And it's
Mhm.
basically like a child who can be orphaned or who just isn't liked for whatever in the family. And they're made to be like a maid. And
Mhm.
they're literally below a dog, essentially, in the society. Often, as a result of this, as you can imagine, there's a lot of abuse that occurs as well. And
Right.
so, for my father, his positioning, he wasn't a Restavek, but he was close to that. And so,
Mhm.
there was a lot of terror and crime and stuff he kind of had to do. He makes his way over here because he has an aunt, and
Mhm.
she essentially petitions for him to come over here. He gets here. Unfortunately, though, this aunt that's here, they're involved in criminal activity. So then he starts to partake in that, and that's normalized to him.
Right.
Um, and also, being Haitian is not cool in America, some of his principles. So he takes to that. Um, but you can see with both of them kind of having to come up with these interesting ways to make their way
Right.
over here or to survive.
Uh-huh. And it is about survival. Absolutely. And so tell me about you and your upbringing.
For me, kind of chaotic, although it was stable at times. Having a father who's involved in like drug dealing and all of that was not very helpful, as you can imagine. I was grateful for the financial support, and my parents were quite successful. They were able to have multiple homes and do good stuff for them before they were 25 years old. However,
Mhm.
because of the incredible trauma that both of them had, they were not able to sustain it. And by the time they were 30 years old, yes, they had the financial stuff, but my father goes to prison. My mother's not able to deal with that. Although
Mhm.
my mother grows up in America, she was left behind. And so,
Mhm.
for so many immigrant families, especially with their children, it's a huge chasm. She doesn't come over here till she's 11 years old. Mind you, that's 10, 11 years being separated. And when she gets here, there's siblings and she has to take care of them. And so her childhood pretty much ends when she gets here. And same thing with my father. And so for the both of them, the concept of raising children was more about I'm going to feed you, I'm going to try to take care of you. But as far as being emotionally there, that is a luxury that they just cannot afford. Get me? So for me growing up, it was quite isolating and difficult with me and my sister. And having the single mom, but thankfully, she was able to maintain herself. And through the ups and downs, we were able to make it to now. But it has not been pretty at all.
Every family. I call that fractured family fairy tales.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like code switching. We all look
Mhm.
forward, smile pretty. We've got, no, life's good. No, we're fine. No,
Right.
it's all good. And there's a story behind every face. We just don't always take the time to listen without judgment and to honor the lived experience of ourselves or our ancestry. It's it's not that difficult unless we've got secrets to keep, right?
Mhm.
I don't want anybody to know that I had mixed heritage 3 generations ago because in my circles, what would they think? Okay. And so if I'm trying to keep family secrets, because I was taught to keep family secrets, don't tell anybody that you've got a drug addict in a family. We don't talk about, affairs here. My parents were married 62 years, 5 children. I'm the youngest of 5 children. My mother was on her deathbed and would have died without a family secret ever coming through, but she died first. And the minute she did, my father went and looked up a girlfriend from 53 years prior, which was during their marriage, where he had had a child who became our sixth, my stepbrother,
Mhm.
and called me, family stories, right? Called me a month after my mother had died. Now, my parents were imperfect, but they had managed to stay together all these years. And one of the things my mom said to me is, well, the only way out of this is by death or divorce. And if I can't live with him, then I'm going to kill the son of a bitch. That was, want to know where I get it?
That's a humor.
Isn't that great? But that was marriage at all costs of her generation.
Mhm. Yeah.
And a month after she was in the ground, he said to me, he wanted me to call this girlfriend of his, who by now was 74, because my father was 80 at that time. And he wanted me to talk to her because she had carried the shame of that out of wedlock pregnancy through her life. And she thought that his children would hate her. And so he reached out to me, the youngest, to be the one to go bridge that gap. I I was in shock because it took that family system I thought I had, kind of like I'm in shock after this election. It took that country I thought I had and disintegrated before my very eyes. And then I had to decide, was I going to be his emissary or not? So I did call her. But I called her to hear her story. And when I saw her story, heard her story, it was heartbreaking. It was abusive. He was an awful person. Lots of story that my family says I should write the book about, and I still might because it's still percolating in there. But what I said to her is, you are so lucky that you raised your son as a single mother, because he was not a father that you would not have the son you have if he had been raised with my dad. And that was the best I could do for him. He didn't tell me what I had to say. He told me what he wanted me to say. I don't ever follow
Mhm.
rules. Yeah. And I did ultimately meet her, and I just my heart broke for her because she was a victim of some degenerate shit, not unlike we see with our country falling apart. So I think sometimes our lived experience is what informs our present response,
Mhm.
even if it's a trauma response, and and what we do with it and how we where we take it from there. So, where do you take your history of all of that and move forward? One of the things that I notice as we've lost 300 or 400,000 Black jobs in the market since the election, which is ridiculous,
Mhm.
and that most of the time, these people are far more educated. The Black women that I know don't have one degree, they have two, plus a JD, plus I mean, they're overqualified, overeducated because they had to be, just like women versus men in business had to
Mhm.
be. We had to be a
Right.
different way. But nobody is more equipped to run this country than a Black woman, in my opinion. And the fact that we can't get beyond that or past that to do the right thing for the most people, marginalized community, baffles and confuses me.
I think it was obvious in both elections with this guy.
Mhm,
And the sexism or the misogynoir
mhm,
is out of control in this country, but not just from the population, but also the way that Joe Biden kind of responded was very weird as
mhm.
well. And even the political party at large. It makes me feel at times that even if you get the whole population on the same page,
Right.
destroying the system is something different entirely, you know? But I think as much as I talked about like these horrors and also about like the destruction of society and stuff, in my mind, it's cynical, but it's also hopeful. It's really the foundation of something much better that will hopefully allow us to kind of be more connected. And I think America can get there at some point if it allows itself.
Right.
Um, but it's, it's almost like when I think of America, I think of I hate to say this, like an abuser. And
Uh-huh.
can they be rehabilitated? On
Yeah.
one level, yes, but are they going to be willing to do that? I
Mhm.
don't know. And would I let someone back into my home if they've abused me and I'm totally with it and capable of keeping them away? Probably not, even if
Mhm.
they're. So I
Right.
don't know.
Right.
But you're right about our experiences informing how we respond to things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah. This has been a fascinating conversation. Um, if there's any part of this that you don't feel comfortable with or don't want to put out, isn't fine because I have really enjoyed getting to know you, but I don't get to censor. I don't even I send it to my podcast producer now, and he does that because I censor the crap out of my stuff when in the beginning, especially the first season, I really did a lot. There are so many good things to come from this, and I'm so grateful, Maya, that you're sharing your heart with us. And so, how do people find you now that we've gotten to this? If where in the world are you? I don't want you to locate, but
true. Yeah.
right,
I'm in my bunker in Arkansas. No, it's
yeah.
you can find me at Silent Psyche Therapy without the P.com. And that's where you can find everything, or just Silent Psyche again without the P, and typing that into Google, and you can find all of my socials, whether it's TikTok or Facebook and all that good stuff. And I'm not very censored on those platforms. And so I'd hope that that could be reflected here too. I felt so comfortable speaking with you today. Your patients are super lucky because if I can feel it this intensely virtually, I can imagine in person and what they're experiencing. But I would be more than happy for you to put everything. I want my clients and the people, the audience, to know who I am genuinely, especially in times where there's so many illusions.
Yes, yes. And I do have another question before we close, and that is about the children. Because with what's happening with the deportations and the uncivil treatment and the, you know, taking people off the street and separating the trauma, the freaking trauma to
Yeah.
everybody who sees it, everybody who sees the video of it, those poor children, the children who are now being sequestered away. You can see the same thing you described in Haiti getting queued up to be happening here. And that's the part that you're like, and people are okay with it. I think I think denial is a wonderful thing when what's coming at you is too much for you to process. But you can't stay in denial forever. So the next step out of that is to feel the righteous anger of, oh my God. And if it hasn't touched you yet, when it does, because it will, at some point, they're gonna come for somebody you know, love, and care about. Then what? What what can people who are not in currently affected do? Can you think of anything to do to navigate these bloody, muddy waters for these children and these families that are being ripped apart?
I think we've spoken about it here quite a bit. Our
Yeah.
history and our ancestors with the
Mhm.
Underground Railroad. Um, I mean, your whiteness can allow you to live in society, but don't think you won't get hit or slapped or shot if you take someone's property. And
Right.
so I think we are in those times, unfortunately, to a varying degree. So I think being, as you were talking about beyond the ally, being an advocate, if you see something is happening, record it and put it out there so we know about the abuses. If you hear that somebody else is undocumented supporting them, whether that's buying groceries or supporting them financially, or even just making sure they're okay and making sure they can get to different locations if you know what's going on with ICE. But I think ever more importantly, like you were talking about starting with us, especially with Thanksgiving and Christmas coming around, being vocal about our perspectives and how ugly and heinous this is, because whoever it starts with, it does not stop with. And so these Christy Gnome terrible commercials that are being promoted, it can be for other groups tomorrow. But even more than that, what's happening is heinous and it has to stop. But I wish I knew ever more nuanced things to do. I'm always open to more stuff and I'm going to keep collecting.
Yeah.
But that's the key things I've been doing.
Yeah. And what I tell people is you don't have to do a big thing. Do what you can do today. If you make a difference to one person in one family in one burb, then you've made a difference. If you shifted a belief system or a thought process or a mental judgment,
Mm.
you've made headway. Take those moments, but don't rest on your laurels because that sideline time that was post-election is over. It's over for all of us because this is, we're at war. We are. There's just no other way to put it, whether you call it that or not. And because we're feeling it in our body and in our
Mm.
generations, we know what war feels like, even if we haven't seen it firsthand yet. Body memories. Yeah.
Yes, trust the body. Absolutely be connected. I just thought of him calling himself the king. And I was like, we're at war. And I'm like, yeah, that language and January 6th and all of that.
Yeah.
But this has been really liberating. I feel like I've connected with a like mind, and that's helped me to feel less like, I don't know, I don't know, like wild in the mind, just totally feeling like I'm one of the few, like people get it a bit around me and here and there. But when you're seeing all of this like signage and the bumper stickers and all these American flags with guns on them, it's just kind of like concerning and scary.
And I tell women, being silent doesn't keep you safe, but sometimes it is a strategy so you live to fight another day. So
Absolutely.
I never advocate, you just go stand up and get in somebody's face for the hell of it because, but we are in an abusive relationship for sure. And there are certain skills that apply. Maya, it's fabulous. I loved this so much. And feel free to reach out and continue the communication. And what I would love to have a budding friendship with every one of my guests. And I'm retired. I got time. So if you need anything, reach out, let me know.
I would. And man, I can't wait to be retired. I feel like that is like the holy grail of the adult experience. So shout out to you. I'm happy you got it. But I definitely will. This was amazing. I can't like podcasting, I just started kind of getting back into it. And the amount of cool people I've met has been Amazing. I wish I would have done this sooner. Of course, there's going to be stuff in between, but thank you so, so, so much. And like just this podcast and the work that you do, it's really beautiful and
Thank you.
revolutionary.
And revolutionary. There you go. I'm the deviant. Oh, bye.